Welcome to this grab bag on direct instruction. Direct instruction isn't a technique as such, but it's more of a pedagogical approach that incorporates different techniques. The idea being that if we have an overview of effective pedagogy, it gives us the ability then to select our teaching tools and techniques more thoughtfully for the stage that our learners might be at in their learning. Adam Boxer recently wrote a book about direct instruction in which he said that it was the greatest educational intervention ever designed, which is quite the claim. So let's find out a little bit about it and see if it makes sense to us in our context. Okay, so how do we do direct instruction? How do we put it into practice? Well, these ideas are taken from a blog post by Paul Kirshner, which you'll find in the references at the end of the video. Kirshner is a professor of education from the Netherlands, and he suggests 5 steps or 5 stages of direct instruction. The first stage is the activate stage. So let's say we're teaching a new topic or a new subject or a new idea. We'll start by setting the stage or the context for that idea. We might spend a few minutes explaining how the idea fits in with the things we've learned previously and what topics it's going to help us with further down the line. And then we might review that prerequisite knowledge, those things that the students should already know by this point. It's important at this point to double check that they do actually know what they should know before we introduce the next idea. So we review prerequisite knowledge, and that could be by a quiz or mini whiteboard starter or Q&A. There's lots of different techniques for doing that. Secondly, we move on to explain. And this is a chance to explain what we want our students to do, or what we want them to learn, or what we want them to know about, or how we want them to go about a particular process. So here you would explain to them what you want them to do, and how you want them to do it. So that includes, for example, things like explaining the means of participation for the task or for that bit of learning. This is the bit that's teacher-led. And it is often wrongly assumed to be the kit and caboodle of direct instruction. There's much more to direct instruction as a pedagogy than just the teacher standing and talking at the front. So thirdly, we will show our students, and we do this by modelling the process. So modelling is an enormously useful teaching tool for our students. Think of it as kind of like a live demonstration. We want to model what we're doing. It doesn't matter if we're modelling writing English essays, or modelling rebuilding an engine, or modelling a particular technique in the salon. We need to model the process so our students can see an expert at work. And as we do it, we want to explain what we did and explain why we did it as we're going along. This is so the students can hear and see an expert working their way through a particular task or a particular idea or a particular concept or a particular skill, and kind of get an expert's eye view of what's going on. After this, fourthly, we give our students time to practice. Initially, we should provide guided practice for them. So we want some solid guides. This might mean practicing small parts of the task, or practicing with heavy scaffolding, where scaffolding in this case might mean, for an English essay, for example, it might mean sentence starters or paragraphing tips. Or if we're stripping an engine, a guided practice might mean having a step-by-step guide on the wall or on the board for students to refer back to while practicing. Perhaps we'll walk our students through one step, we'll let them do that first step, and then we remind them of the second step from our modelling and let them do that, and so on. And the idea is that over time they have less and less guidance, fewer scaffolds, fewer hints, fewer reminders, fewer sentence starts, whatever it might be, until they're ready to do it on their own. And that brings us to the final stage of direct instruction, which is essentially to let go. So the final stage is where we've gradually given way to independent practice until they can complete the task or discuss the idea or write the essay independently of our input. So this idea is sometimes called transition to independence. We've gone from explaining and showing and being kind of pretty much teacher-led to a loosening of the reins, so to speak, a guiding through the task or the topic or the idea, and then we're going to get our students to practice it ultimately independently. Now, this 5-step process doesn't have to fit into a single lesson. This is not a lesson plan. It could be a series of lessons or even just a part of a lesson, depending on the complexity of the task. So it could be a series of lessons, a sequence over a unit. It depends on what you're teaching, how complex and how involved that thing is. But what's really important to note at this point is that it's not a one-way street. If, for example, you start to ask your students to work independently, you're sort of at the letting go stage, and you find they can't do it, it's perfectly legitimate to go back a step or back 2 steps and start again. And so there's a to and fro inherent in the idea of direct instruction. The idea is to move towards letting them have complete independence in their practice, but not so soon that their independent practice ends up embedding poor skills or incomplete understanding. You should go back and fill the gaps and provide maybe guided practice again, or model again and show them what to do and all that sort of thing. So the essential point is to be responsive to the needs of our learners in each of these parts of this pedagogic process of direct instruction. And you can only be responsive, you can only do that for each of these 5 steps if you're doing lots of checking for understanding. What in the past we've referred to as assessment for learning, or AFL, and more currently seems to be being referred to as responsive teaching. So that's it really, that's what direct instruction is. I'll do a longer video on this where I'll give you some more depth and some more explanation, along with the pretty startling evidence for the validity and impact of the approach. But that's it for this grab bag. Here are the references if you want to chase any of this stuff up. Feel free to contact me with any further questions or thoughts. But other than that, that's it for this video. So I'll see you in the next one.